back like we never left. It's Double Move Sports. As always, I'm Stef Albiero. I'm here with the fantasy phenom, Alex Lott, and it is draft season right now. We are weeks away from kickoff. Drafts are happening this weekend. Drafts already happened the last 2 weekends. Alex, we need to get into a 12-team PPR mock for the people. You excited to get into this thing?
I am, yeah. Steph, you and I had our home league draft this past weekend. Great league, 14-team, 1 keeper, a lot of fun. Unfortunately, you sniped me in a couple places in that draft and threw me off. I guess that's what happens when we talk about football, every single week for the entire year. But it was an absolute blast, and I know there's more drafts happening this weekend, this coming weekend. Labor Day weekend's one of the biggest draft weekends of the entire season. So we had to come at you with one, and definitely not the last, but one more updated, relevant. All the recent injuries are going to be considered in this mock draft. So we had to come back at it with a 12-team PPR mock. Steph, you're drafting from the 4 spot. I'm at the 9 spot. 2 very interesting places to draft this season. And this is going to be a pretty typical league. Quarterback, 2 running back, 2 receiver, tight end, and a flex. We'll get into some bench spots and sleepers as well. But I'm hyped to get into this thing.
So the draft has started. I'm probably going to go running back here because that's what you do when you're in the top 6 picks of any fantasy draft, whether it's 14-team, 12-team, 10-team. And with 12-team, it's kind of the most balanced of all the formats. With 14-team, you need to focus more on things like running back depth. In 10-team leagues, you got to focus on difference makers at every position. You pay up for your tight ends and your QBs in 10-team leagues. And you can go check all those out on our channel. You can also join our Discord channel. Link to that down below. We've been popping off in there. I think we gained like 80 members in the last week. It's just been absolutely ridiculous. So appreciate all you guys joining, sticking around, and watching. And we're going to have a full podcast coming out later this week as well, where we're going to be getting into some takes on the polarizing names preseason. It's crazy, right? We forgot about what preseason does to fantasy values because we didn't really have one last year. But the pick for me is easy here. It's Ezekiel Elliott. It's a workhorse running back on an offense that should be super high scoring. They have one of the best schedules. Not only do they have the Giants, the Eagles, and Washington football team twice, they also have the AFC West, so they're going to be playing the Chiefs. We know they start the year with the Buccaneers, which could be tough for Zeke, admittedly, but I'm not going to overreact to the Week 1 matchup, and I'm just going to trust that regardless of what Mike McCarthy's saying about Zeke's workload, he's going to continue to be what he has been essentially every year of his career, except for last year when they kind of shut him down after the Dak injury occurred, which is just a stud RB1 in fantasy football. He not only has the floor, but he also has that ceiling on any given week where he could have 2 touchdowns. He could have 7 receptions in a game. So I feel great about that pick to start off. And it's a pretty chalk start to this draft. McCaffrey, Cook, Kamara, Zeke, Derrick Henry, Javonte Adams at the 106. I actually really like that pick there. Saquon Barkley is going to fall to you here, Alex, because it was Nick Chubb and Aaron Jones after that Adams pick. Are you going to go Saquon, or are you going to dip your toes in the water with Tyreek Hill?
This is a very tough spot to draft this season. I think of everywhere in the draft, 8, 9, 10 is the hardest because you are the first person that really has to make that big decision between that next tier of running backs, a top wide receiver, or Travis Kelce at tight end. I know we made a video earlier in the offseason about the top 6 picks in every single draft should be those top 5 backs that went off the board: McCaffrey, Cook, Kamara, Zeke, and Henry, and then Saquon Barkley. And I know Saquon is still on the board here, but I've definitely gotten a little more hesitant with the injury concerns. I think he's going to be fine. I think he's going to play Week 1. We will see what happens at the time of this recording. He's doing a lot of live drills, and the expectation is that he has a good shot to be out there Week 1. But I think I'm actually going to go Travis Kelce with this pick. I'm warming up to Kelce in the back of the first round. And in this draft specifically, with this 9th spot, here's why. I look at the running backs on the board, and there's still 6 guys I'd feel okay with as my running back 1. Eckler, Barkley, Jonathan Taylor, Antonio Gibson, Joe Mixon, Najee Harris. And Barkley would be at the top of that group for me. But I think the fall off between Barkley and that next tier of guys, JT, Eckler, Mixon, Najee, isn't that far. And I know if I don't take a tight end at this first turn, I'm not going to get an elite tight end, and the drop off at tight end is going to be a lot bigger. So I'm going to lock in Travis Kelce with this pick. There's only 6 picks in between this pick and my next one, so I'm kind of crossing my fingers and hoping all these teams on the turn don't load up on running backs as I go with Travis Kelce at the 9th pick in the first round. Something I've gotten more and more comfortable with in these drafts. We've really expressed the importance of early tight end this year and how on board we are with it. And this 204 is too early for Waller or Kittle in my mind. And without being on that back turn like you're going to be at the 209 and then at the 304, I don't have a shot at Kittle or Waller. So it looks like my gamble paid off. Saquon, Eckler, JT, Tyreek, Mahomes, and Najee Harris went off the board at the turn. And this pick's easy for me. At the 204, I'm going with a guy I had as a fantasy football MVP for this season. It's Joe Mixon. I like Gibson too. That would be my other option with this pick. But I'm going to go with Mixon. I think he has the ceiling to truly be a top 5 back this season with the workload he's going to get. So it's a pretty easy smash. I'm starting this one with Kelce and Joe Mixon, feeling pretty good about that. And I think I can get some wide receiver value in the middle rounds.
The best thing about fantasy football this year is that there's so much depth at running back and wide receiver because we had that loaded 2020 class. We have a lot of guys the last couple of years that are still in their prime. You had a renaissance of guys like Keenan Allen getting a new quarterback, Stephon Diggs getting a new quarterback, DeAndre Hopkins going to Arizona. Like, all these things are firing off at the same time. And even at the running back position, man, I'm liking some of these mid-round names like the Damian Harrises of the world, the Trey Sermons of the world. So this year, more than any, I'm willing to punt my RB2 position because so much depth is there. And a lot of people aren't in tune with a lot of the ADPs, especially in your home leagues. I was picking up Trey Sermon and A.J. Dillon and Gus Edwards at values just last weekend when we drafted. And so I feel really good being able to wait on running back. And let's see who is on the board for me at the 209. A bunch of receivers went, by the way, Alex. We had Diggs, Keenan, Hopkins, Metcalf, all go after your Joe Mixon pick. So a bunch of wide receivers went, but looks like there's a clear difference maker for me here. And there's really two that I'm making my decision, and both of them were fantasy MVPs. So go check out our channel if you want to see a full take and breakdown on both of these players, because it's Calvin Ridley and Darren Waller. But I think I like my rosters more when I do have that clear set it and forget it wide receiver one. To me, Ridley is that guy because he is in a funneled volume situation. You look at guys like Stephon Diggs last year, there wasn't a ton of competition for him in the passing game, and the Bills are a high pace of play, high pass volume offense. Calvin Ridley in the same situation. Even like DeAndre Hopkins, same situation. Davante Adams in the same situation. A efficient, high-scoring offense where he's really the main target, really fits into that range, and he's a little bit younger than those guys. And yes, the Falcons aren't quite as flashy. He will get some empty calorie targets in there, but for just the floor of his target volume and the proof that he already gave us last year, finishing 4th in fantasy points per game at the wide receiver position, I'll feel good with a set it and forget it wide receiver one that has proven top 5 upside. And after Ridley went, it was A.J. Brown, Antonio Gibson. Great value on Gibson, back of the second. Phenomenal pick there. Love what Team 2 is doing here with Cook, Gibson, Kittle. So essentially punting the wide receiver position. They're going to be able to end up with some really strong, deeper names. We'll see who they pick, but I'm guessing they're going to end up with names like T. Higgins, Brandon Ayuk, Leviska Chenault, Cortland Sutton, which are guys that you can totally take. Alex, you can attest to that because you just did it in our last draft. And then Darren Waller and Kittle, unfortunately, both went. So it looks like we're about to punt the tight end position here. Justin Jefferson and Clyde Edwards-Helaire also off the board. So back to me at the 304. It's interesting, Alex, because we both have really like 6 picks between each one that we make. But a guy that is a clear difference maker for me is the last one in a tier of players I really like. It is DeAndre Swift. Mm-hmm. He goes into a situation where he has a head coach and an offensive coordinator that have coached Alvin Kamara and Austin Eckler their last seasons. Like, they know how to use these running backs in the passing game. Yes, Jamal Williams will take some of the between the tackles touches and maybe a little bit through the air as well. But Swift should be that clear PPR machine. We're seeing Brashad Perriman get cut. The Lions honestly have the worst receiving core in the entire NFL, which just makes me so much more excited for DeAndre Swift and TJ Hawkinson, which I'm sure one of us will probably take at some point in this draft. But Swift is the easy pick for me. He already showed last year. He's an absolute stud. I expect everything to improve in year 2.
Yeah, Steph, and with that pick, you're essentially telling everyone your stance on some of the injury concerns in the coach speak we've heard out of Lions camp, because one of the questions we've seen the most in the YouTube comments, in our Discord, what are we doing with DeAndre Swift? How worried should we be about his injury? What should we do with Jamal Williams? And to me, it's not great to see that Swift is battling an injury, but when you really look into what the coach is saying, it sounds like the expectation is that Swift will be available week 1. The question is he in game shape? Is he ready to take a high snap share? Is he ready to take those reps? So maybe Swift does get off to a slow start, but even if it takes Swift 2, 3, 4 games even to get really ramped up full speed in this offense, and we see his snap share increase each and every week as we get into the season, I still think he's going to return on that value at the 304. I'm not super concerned about it. I've definitely seen him fall in some drafts because of those concerns, but I'm with you that he's a great guy to have as your running back 2 on a roster. And if you're getting him at a value, kind of buying that dip because some of the concerns out of the Lions camp, I think it's a win. So after Swift, we did see Montgomery, Allen Robinson, Josh Allen, and CeeDee Lamb come off the board. So I'm back on the clock, and I really could go any direction here at the 309 except for the tight end spot. I'm not going to reach on Kyler Murray or Lamar Jackson just yet. At running back, I do need an RB2, and we are in that questionable tier, that last tier of guys that I'd be comfortable with. Chris Carson, James Robinson, Miles Sanders, Josh Jacobs for me. So there's 4 guys there. I don't know if I want to risk getting around the turn and those 4 guys going off the board. But at receiver, we have McLaurin, Woods, Amari Cooper, really Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, who I'd be okay with. Maybe even Cooper Kupp as well. At the receiver spot, I think McLaurin is in a tier of his own. So that's really the decision I'm making. Maybe McLaurin and Amari Cooper are the 2 receivers I prefer. At running back, I'd be okay with any of Carson, Robinson, Sanders, and Jacobs next round. So I think I'm going to take a risk here and kind of play that ADP game again on the turn. Team 10, who's picking right after me, already has 2 running backs. Team 11 and 12 already have 1 running back. So in your draft, if you're on the turn, be sure to look at who the teams picking around you have already taken so you can kind of try to project and see who you could expect to get back to on the turn. So I'm going to go ahead and lock in Terry McLaurin here. And it really was between Terry McLaurin and Amari Cooper for me. I've talked about Cooper as a fantasy football MVP for me this season, so by no means is this an indictment on him. But I just want to be able to throw some Terry McLaurin takes in here as well, Steph, because I feel like we haven't hit on him quite as much. But he is in that upper echelon for me. No, he's not going to have a funneled volume situation like a Tyreek Hill, like a Javonte Adams, like a Keenan Allen, even, or a Stephon Diggs. But he is the clear alpha on an offense that should be more efficient, that should be able to throw the ball with Ryan Fitzpatrick this season. We've seen the talent from McLaurin. Now he finally gets a quarterback upgrade in Fitzpatrick, both from a down the field targets perspective and just from an efficiency perspective. Fitzpatrick is going to be better than Dwayne Haskins. Alex Smith, was checking it down to McKissick all day. So I'm going to take McLaurin here. I think he is really going to level up this season and flirt with that wide receiver 1 status. And drafting him here as my 1 with Mixon and Kelsey already on my roster feels really great. So after McLaurin, we did see Julio, Carson, James Robinson, Woods, Mike Evans, and Lamar Jackson go off the board. So my gamble did pay off.
Amari Cooper's still there. Are you considering getting both your wide receivers here?
Now that is something I overlooked. I'm glad you called that out because looking at the running back spot, it's Miles Sanders, Josh Jacobs, and Amari Cooper is on the board at receiver. And it's funny, Steph, in the draft we just had in our home league, you took Cooper a couple picks in front of me. He was the guy I had circled, highlighted, starred on my notes. You took him, and I actually had the same decision at running back between Miles Sanders and Josh Jacobs. I ended up going Jacobs there, but if Cooper was there, it would have been auto pick for me on Amari Cooper. So I'm going to take that same strategy here. I know I planned on running back, and you just have a great value on the board in Amari Cooper. You can't go into your draft with a set strategy like I'm going tight end, running back, receiver, running back. You can't set it up like that. You have to be willing to take the values where they fall to you. Maybe you can try to plan that out for rounds 1 and 2, and then you just have to play the draft board and play your league. So with that being the case, I like the call out, Steph. Glad you reminded me my boy Cooper is still on the board. He's someone I think could be a wide receiver 1 this season. And to have McLaurin and Cooper at receiver after going tight end, running back to start this draft feels really, really good.
Wait. Alex, I have to stop the show because I'm dumb hyped over this new sponsorship deal we got. Shout out to our guys over at Manscaped. And look, I was skeptical, but Alex, I've been a very hairy guy for a long time. I was the kid at 13 years old in middle school.
Oh, yeah.
with chest hair showing out of the polo shirt. Like, I was that dude.
I was jealous at the time.
Well, nothing to be jealous over anymore, because ever since I got this lawnmower 4.0 from them, it's been clean down there, to say the least.
Manscaped has the lawnmower 4.0, not the 1, not the 2, not the 3, but the 4.0. Talk about sleepers on our show, and this has to be one of the best sleeper products out there. I was skeptical as well, and it's been an absolute game changer. Check out Manscaped. This thing is legit, and you will definitely not be disappointed by this full body trimmer. It's incredible.
So Manscaped was nice enough to give us a 20% off discount code for the Double Move Sports viewers. You can get 20% off and free shipping with code DMS at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. Use code DMS, unlock your confidence, and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped. Now back to the show. You got to remember in the back of your mind in these drafts, guys, BPA, BPA, BPA. Just get the best player available. That's what the NFL decision makers, these front office guys, like, they have to live by that as well when they're investing millions of dollars into these players. That's how we should be treating it in our drafts. And the ceiling is not there for Josh Jacobs. There's a lot of question marks around Miles Sanders and what that Eagles offense is going to look like. And can that veteran O-line stay healthy and let Sanders be the explosive playmaker that we think he can be? Is Jalen Hurts going to throw the ball to him like he did in that limited sample size that he had last season? We don't know. Is he going to take off and run a little bit more? So just a lot of questions. I love Sanders. He probably would have been my pick there at the 409, but love that you went best player in Amari Cooper there. And this is no better illustrated if you look at Team 6 on this draft board right now, because I actually think this year you can go triple wide receiver to start drafts, and it's actually okay. And I like the way they did it, where they went Adams, Hopkins, Robinson, all clear wide receiver ones, all guys that have insane upside and high floor. If Allen Robinson is that dude with Justin Fields entering the picture, man, that roster is going to be scary. I mean, we're talking about potentially 90 points right there from those three receivers. It's absolutely ridiculous. So don't go in locked in. That's the clear takeaway. But let's see who's here at the 409. Josh Jacobs still there. I'm not a big Josh Jacobs guy. I do think he's just a volume play. He's a David Montgomery from 2019, where I just think he's pure floor. Cooper Kupp is there, who I love. Dak, Russell Wilson. Who did I take earlier? So Calvin Ridley. So not trying to create a stack at the moment. Definitely not trying to walk into week one with Matt Ryan as my quarterback. So no stack considerations with these QBs. I'll let somebody fall. I think I am just going to go with Cooper Kupp because I don't really love any of these running backs. I mean, Mike Davis, he's on our fade team for this year. Mm-hmm. He's older. Yes, he's in a good situation as far as, that running back room at Atlanta, but that was a really inefficient situation. Mike Davis at age 29 coming from a situation where he was essentially inflated by the Christian McCaffrey role. I just don't see him being efficient at all. And who knows how many goal line opportunities there's going to be on this Atlanta offense. I think it's going to be a lot of boat races. I think it's going to be a lot of just throw it up for Calvin Ridley and Kyle Pitts and hope for the best. So I'm going to go Cooper Kupp here, a guy that I think has insane upside, double-digit touchdown upside, a level of upside he never had with Jared Goff under center. Now that he has Matt Stafford, one of the deepest passers, I should say, over the last decade. And we know he has that ability to throw the ball 600 plus times in a season and still retain his efficiency. So I feel great with that. And I'm glad I went Cooper Kupp because holy cow, 6 straight wide receivers after Kupp.
It's wild.
DJ Moore, Deontay Johnson, T. Higgins, Brandon Ayuk, Adam Thielen, Juju Smith-Schuster. Wow. So yeah, Kupp was definitely the right pick there based on how this draft board is going, which probably means one of those running backs, all of those running backs are still going to be there for me. And even at tight end, I mean, where are we now in this draft? Are we fifth round?
This is getting close to Hawkins and Andrews' Pitts range. Those are the 3 guys we've said in round 6. If you don't have a tight end, it's like auto pick. Early in round 5, I think they've got to be in consideration. They've got to at least be in consideration for you here.
Yeah, and it's tough too because I have DeAndre Swift and I have Calvin Ridley. So it feels, if I take Kyle Pitts, I'm essentially hedging my Ridley pick in a way that I don't want, even though I think Pitts could have a tremendous season. Alex, we were talking before the show, like I've come full circle. I was not in on Pitts at all in the draft process, but after what we've seen in preseason, the way that Falcons situation is shaping out, I'm really rising on Pitts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's upside time. It's upside time here in the early fifth. And I have Ridley. I have Kupp. Let me get a guy that could be a league winner at the flex spot. And based on how current reports are going, people are going to say this is a reach or this is a hot take. But it's Jamar Chase. He's been right there, right behind T. Higgins for me in my rankings, in my tiers. I know there's the camp concerns, but I can't overreact to that. The guy's definitely going to have some rust after opting out of college last year, and people are just forgetting how dominant he was in college, especially with the competition that he had at LSU, man. I mean, people like Terrace Marshall right now, and people, obviously, we know what Justin Jefferson is, and Jamar Chase was making them his kids when he was in that LSU receiver room. We just got to remember, put into perspective what Jamar Chase is able to do, has that top 5 draft capital, and it's really just a ceiling play for me. If Jamar Chase doesn't hit, maybe he's just a floor play, maybe he's just a high volume, empty calorie guy, like sure. But like there's so much volume in Cincinnati. AJ Green vacates over 100 targets. Even if just all of those get copy and pasted over to Jamar Chase, he's going to be fine. He is a red zone threat, and he's a freak athlete. So I'm going to bet on that athleticism and that draft capital and the situation and the offense over some of the camp reports. And I remember, man, last year, Olabisi Johnson was listed ahead of Justin Jefferson in everyone's rankings. It was just ridiculous. I'm not going to overreact to any camp or preseason stuff. He's getting his sea legs. It might be a slow onboard for Jamar Chase, and that's why I have T. Higgins over him. But he's the pick for me here. And it was a tough one just based on where we're at in this draft.
I like the stamp of approval on Chase there. After Chase went Mark Andrews, Josh Jacobs did go at the 506. If he would have fallen to me at the 509, that would have been a dream come true. But then we saw Mike Davis go off the board and Kyle Pitts at the 508. So these tight ends are starting to go. I'm back at the 509, and fortunately for me, there's a couple guys I'm really interested in with this pick, and I got to look and see if one can get back to me on the turn. And those two guys are Dak Prescott at quarterback. I could get that Dak Prescott, Amari Cooper stack at a very good value in this draft, which would be fantastic. But I do lack a running back 2 right now. So when I look at the running backs available, there's really one guy that stands out to me in this crowd. Right now, the top guys on the board are Darrell Henderson, Kareem Hunt, Myles Gaskin, Gus Edwards, Chase Edmonds, and Javonte Williams. To me, Gus Edwards stands out in this crowd as my RB2 because when I look at the Gus Edwards situation, he should be a rock-solid, stable volume play with touchdown upside in the Baltimore offense, a perfect RB2 for the roster I have. And later on in this draft, I can take some upside shots on guys like Tony Pollard, on guys like A.J. Dillon. We'll see who ends up falling to me later. But if I want to take those upside shots, getting Gus Edwards here, one, it buys me time with some of the upside shots, waiting to see if injuries happen as the season goes along, waiting to see if they carve out bigger roles. But two, Gus Edwards himself has tremendous upside. I mean, think about what would have happened to J.K. Dobbins' ADP if Gus Edwards had been the one to go down. If Gus Edwards had gone down, J.K. Dobbins would be going ridiculously high in these drafts. But you kind of have to flip that situation on its head and say Gus Edwards not only is elevating to the 1 spot, but he was already a 1B, and his 1A went down in Dobbins. Now, I do think Dobbins brings more to the field as a player. Obviously, with that second-round draft capital he had just a couple seasons ago, he has a better profile. He's a better prospect. He's more athletic, things like that. But Gus Edwards has proved to us time and time again he's a very efficient runner, and he's great for this scheme. So I do expect Baltimore to bring somebody in. We're recording this right in the midst of roster cuts. So as we get into some of these sleepers, who knows? Some of the guys we're talking about, the situations might slightly change based on, deep veteran cuts on these rosters. So I do expect them to bring somebody in, but Gus Edwards still should be the clear number 1 on this team and a strong RB2. So that's my case for Gus, just in case he doesn't come around to me on this turn, because I'm going with Dak Prescott here. I'm playing that ADP game again where there's a lot of running backs in this tier that I like, and I'm just going to take the one that falls back to me. And after Dak went Kenny Golladay, TJ Hawkinson, Jerry Jeudy, Russell Wilson, Odell Beckham, and Courtland Sutton. So no running backs went. I'm going to get my pick of these guys. I know a lot of people are going to be saying, well, what about Darrell Henderson with Cam Akers out? I think Sony Michel coming in is a bigger deal than a lot of people realize. I think Henderson's going to be great this season. He would be my pick if Gus Edwards had gone off the board here. Just a high-powered offense. He's going to get some touches. He's going to get some receiving work. He did profile okay as a receiver coming out of college. He just hasn't translated that onto this NFL roster and what the scheme is doing. So I think Henderson's fine, but I'm going with Gus Edwards, who should be a rock-solid running back too. With good volume and good touchdown upside on a good rushing offense.
And to just keep pounding this drum, because I've seen people sign into our DMs on Twitter. You can always hit us up at Double Move Sport. The Discord is probably the better way to go. If you do want to get in front of us, you can always tag us on there, and we'll be in there doing some live streams, casual conversations, roster feedback. But Tyshawn Williams, we've had a lot of questions about him, as that now, seemingly like over Justice Hill is going to be the RB2 on that depth chart in Baltimore with Dobbins out of the picture. I don't think there's a lot to like with Tyshawn Williams. And we'll get into Gus Edwards a little bit more later in the week, but he's not a strong prospect. He has decent size, decent burst. I think he runs like a 4.53, but not much else to like there, and jumped around to 3 different colleges when he was in college, and never saw more than 100 carries and 12 receptions in a season. Just not a lot to like from his resume, and he's an undrafted free agent. So take with that what you will. I love that Gus Edwards pick there for you. I think 6th round is a perfect spot for him, and I would take him over Henderson as well. And after Gus, Gaskin, Devonta Smith, Aaron Rodgers, Deebo Samuel. So let's see who is here. Right now, I have Zeke and Swift, and then 3 wide receivers. So tight end is something I'll be looking at. Quarterback is something I might look at. And then obviously the RB3. And Darrell Henderson is still there. Let's see who's on the board at tight end real quick. I don't like any of the names here, man. Fant, Logan Thomas, Goddard, Tunyon, Higbee. I'm down to wait on all those guys. And even waiting further than that, I'll go Jonnu Smith or Irv Smith in the late double-digit rounds. Even later than that. If we were
Irv Smith is battling that injury. Another thing to think about.
Yeah, Tyler Conklin could be like the last pick in your draft and be a fine streamer, beat everybody to the waivers.
Very sneaky, yeah.
Blake Jarwin, another interesting name there. Austin Hooper looked good in the preseason, to be honest with you, but I'm just kind of going down the list. Let's go ahead and lock up Javonte Williams. He is the pick for me here. He's a perfect, robust RB name, which is really the strategy I'm taking with 2 guys that I believe are locked in RB1, RB2, and then I'll go ahead and get the guy that could be that RB1 league winner for me in the back half of the season. Think back to DeAndre Swift and Jonathan Taylor last year and what they're able to do for these teams and propel people into playoff runs, fantasy football championships. And listen to this, Alex. Javonte Williams was rested in the last preseason game and has no injury designation. Could they be saving him knowing that he is going to be their RB1 going into the year?
Yeah, that was weird. I think truly at face value, like, they just gave him the day off because Melvin Gordon has missed some time, and they wanted to see him get more work with the ones, because if Javonte had sat and all the ones had sat, I would have thought it was a different situation. But considering Teddy, Cortland Sutton, everyone else was out there except Javonte, I don't want to read into it too much, but it's definitely going to be a pretty even split there to start the season, I think, in Denver. I think Javonte's a perfect pick as an RB3, like you said, because he does give you that back half upside. But what happens if Javonte's more involved early on than we think, and he's someone you can start plugging in week 3, week 4, instead of week 8, week 9? So that's a fantastic pick in the 6th round for the roster you've got.
And after Javonte, it was Justin Herbert. So the last guy in that tier, I would have been looking at him at the 704. And then Tyler Boyd, Darrell Henderson, Tom Brady, Matt Stafford, and Chase Claypool. I guess Tannehill would be the last one from that tier. He's actually on the COVID list right now, and I don't want to reach on him. Kareem Hunt's still there, who's interesting. Chase Edmonds is interesting. Damian Harris is the guy that I'm really rising on. But let's go back to the roster construction. So Zeke, Swift, Javonte, Ridley, Kupp, Chase. I think it's going to be running back, and I think I am going to go ahead and grab Kareem Hunt. So with Javonte Williams being that, late in the season upside shot, at least that's what we're projecting for the season. Hopefully things pan out for him sooner. Kareem Hunt can really be that floor play for me as well. A guy that's perfect for bye weeks, a guy that can be perfect for my flex if I don't have a lot of other options. Really just a depth piece, but getting him at this range is phenomenal value. And I'm not huge. Like, I don't go into any draft saying, oh, I'm so excited to get Kareem Hunt. But getting him in the early 7th round is absolutely ridiculous for a guy who's probably going to see 8 touchdowns, probably going to be an efficient runner, and is going to see passing game work behind one of the best offensive lines in football with my Brownies. So I feel good about that Hunt pick there. And now I can chill on running back for a while. And after Hunt, it was Tannehill, Michael Thomas in the 7th round. Don't hate that value. Then Robbie Anderson, Corey Davis. Corey Davis is a guy that we're going to talk about on the podcast that we do later this week. Very interested in him with Zach Wilson kind of turning on the Jets, pun intended. But Alex, who are you going with at the 709?
I love the Hunt pick, and I know people are going to say, why do you need a 4th running back when you don't have quarterback, you don't have tight ends? And really in these 12-team leagues, especially 14-team leagues, you can really never have enough running back depth. That position dries up the quickest. So it wouldn't surprise me, Steph, if that's the last running back you took in this draft. Now, if there is a value that falls to you, I know you'll snag one. But if I'm in a draft, I'm fine coming out of it with 4 running backs because I'm not going to take one of these random Phillip Lindsay, James White, Latavius Murray, Darrell Williams flyers just to like get an even number of running backs and wide receivers. I'm only taking picks that actually could bring value to my team, regardless of position at the end. So you've locked up 4 running backs, and there's a lot more sleeper wide receiver names, even tight end, even quarterback that you can snag late. And the running backs drive quickly. So I like it that you've got 4 running backs and you don't have to take another one if you don't want to. But on the board here, I really could go either way. I've got a need for a flex, and typically in PPR leagues, I prefer my flex to be a wide receiver. I'm pretty thin at running back. Joe Mixon, Gus Edwards, I would like to get some more strength there. Trey Sermon is on the board. I think there's several interesting names to bring some depth to this roster at running back. Edmonds, Harris, Mostert even looked great in the preseason game when he's healthy. I think he's going to be valuable. Trey Sermon as an upside shot. I said when I picked Edwards, that gives me some flexibility to take some guys that I can wait on, like a Trey Sermon. And then at receiver, there's a lot of good names. And I think at the receiver spot, Leviska Chenault was one of my fantasy MVPs, so he jumps out to me here. I'm going to hope he gets back to me on the turn. But even if he doesn't, we've got guys like Antonio Brown. We've got Brandon Cooks, who should get some volume. We've got Curtis Samuel, Mike Williams, Michael Gallup. There are guys I can plug in at my flex and be okay. So I'm going to go ahead and take a running back here. I am going to go Trey Sermon. I know you'll be proud of me for this one, Steph. You've got me rising on Sermon, and I'm rising on Sermon and Raheem Mostert. When these 2 guys are healthy, I think it's going to be a really lethal 1-2 punch, and both can deliver RB2 value for a roster. And as the season goes on, Mostert, I don't want to say he's injury prone, but let's be honest, it seems to be made of glass at this point. I'd be really surprised if he played all 17 games. Trey Sermon as well. I mean, all these running backs, it's really hard to stay out there for a full season. So for Mostert and Sermon, I think if one of them's out, the other becomes a close to a top 12 must start type of option. And even when they're both out there at the same time, this is going to be a fun offense. It's the elite Shanahan run scheme, and I'm going to go with the rookie that could have that upside and that juice, that upside in the unknown. Although we're starting to be more and more certain of what we're seeing with Trey Sermon. So I'm going to lock him in as my RB3. Someone I can stash on my bench early in the season and see what happens in San Francisco.
Alex, and I'll go ahead and plug, if you want to see throughout this entire prospect, if you want to learn what the values, what the profiles are of these rookies, we put out content all during the offseason, during drafts, dynasty, rookie drafts as well. One thing that's interesting with Shanahan, and I went really deep into this in Shanahan's history as a head coach, as an offensive coordinator, the last time he had a mobile QB with a big arm, it was RG3. And the running back that he took in the late rounds on day 3 was Alfred Morris. And Alfred Morris was an absolute stud for, I believe it was 3 seasons, over 1,000 yards, had double-digit touchdowns one year. I'm just saying, man, Trey Sermon fits into that Alfred Morris type profile. He could be a 3-down back. I think his upside is insane, but the odds are low that he really does become an Alfred Morris because of the way the things have gone in San Francisco for a while. And even right now, they have Elijah Mitchell, who they also drafted, same draft as Sermon. They have Wayne Gallman, who they signed on a 1-year deal, and we'll see if some of these guys.
Someone's getting cut. By the time this episode is released, someone's probably getting cut from that backfield. It'll be interesting to see who it is.
Last thing I'll say is Trey Sermon at worst will get the Jeff Wilson role, and if you played fantasy last year, you know Jeff Wilson was a guy that everyone was rushing to the waivers for, and Jeff Wilson's already going to be missing the beginning of the season, if not 6 months, based on his injury. So feel really happy for you with that Sermon pick, and I'm rising on Sermon like it's my job. And then Will Fuller, AB, Jarvis Landry, DJ Chark, Damian Harris, Chase Edmonds. Damian Harris and Chase Edmonds were great values there. We love AB
Absolutely.
at this range. Think he could out-target Godwin and Evans in certain weeks. But looks like Leviska Chenault did make it back to you.
Easiest pick of the draft for me. Shocked is here in the 8th round. Don't take DJ Chark ahead of Leviska Chenault this year. Draft Leviska Chenault as the number 1 receiver on Jacksonville. If you really want a detailed breakdown of why I love Chenault, it's fresh on our channel. We released it in the last week.
We have 2 of them.
Leviska Chenault. We have 2 Leviska Chenault breakdowns. They're relevant. Trevor Lawrence is quarterback, high volume, high efficiency offense, or at least a high volume offense with better efficiency than last year, I should say. Chenault has the profile to be an alpha wide receiver 1 in the NFL. And that's really the Spark Notes version of why I'm taking him here. And he's going to be my flex early in the season, which feels absolutely fantastic.
That's such a smart pick for your flex because week 1 he plays Houston, which should be a smash matchup. DJ Chark is coming into the year with a broken hand, and Marvin Jones looks like he's going to be missing week 1 as well. So it could be a funneled volume situation for Leviska Chenault early to start the year. And at A.J. Brown's size, he's going to do crazy things with the ball in his hands. But after Leviska, it was Mostert and Gordon going there. So we're getting into veteran running back names. Brandon Cooks, Jalen Waddle as well. And here for me, I have 4 running backs, 3 wide receivers. So probably looking at wide receiver here. I typically would go Curtis Samuel, but he hasn't played at all this offseason. I'm kind of worried injury-wise for Curtis Samuel. Jalen Hurts is there, and that's going to be the pick for me because I feel like I can get, whether it is Mike Williams, Michael Gallup, even Michael Pittman, I'm slowly starting to rise on as we get closer to the season. So I'm going to go ahead and just get Jalen Hurts. I don't want Noah Fant or Logan Thomas yet. I'd gladly wait on Goddard or Tunyon later on, even Tyler Higbee, like I mentioned. So Jalen Hurts is that clear difference maker. Have a full breakdown on why I think he is a fantasy football MVP this year. And I know people might be a little bit worried with the Gardner Minshew signing, and I really think that was just an insurance policy on Jalen Hurts. I expect big things from him. He does have that Josh Allen type profile, and getting him here in the back of the 8th doesn't kill my roster if for some reason Hurts gets sat for Mustache Minshew in Philly. And then after Hurts, it was Curtis Samuel, Leonard Fournette, Michael Carter, and A.J. Dillon. I like what Team 1 is doing here with the late-round running backs after going CMC at the 101. Take notes there, guys. Henderson, Carter, A.J. Dillon, perfect guys that you can just...
We got to get Team 1 on the pod. We got to get him on a guest spot. Him or her, who knows?
I actually love their roster. Super young. Love the roster construction with Waller in the 2nd round. But... let's see who else is here for me. I'm probably just going to grab one of those receivers to be a wide receiver 4. Mike Williams is the top guy that's there. I like the offense. I love Justin Herbert. We've seen Mike Williams have double-digit touchdowns. We see him have over 1,000 yards on a season. So I'm just going to go Mike Williams there. Hope he can bring it all together and be that clear number 2 behind Keenan Allen. And who knows, man? Maybe Keenan Allen goes down and Mike Williams gets thrust in that number 1 role. We certainly know the downfield targets are going to be there for Williams.
I love it. Nice and easy pick for you there in the 9th round, just an upside wide receiver. After Williams, we saw Ronald Jones, Michael Gallup, Mecole Hardman, and Zach Moss come off the board. Steph, before I pick, I just have to say, we each picked 3 fantasy MVPs this season. I have drafted all 3 of mine, Joe Mixon, Amari Cooper, and Leviska Chenault. You have drafted 2 of your 3 in Calvin Ridley and Jalen Hurts, and you almost took your 3rd, Darren Waller, when you did take Ridley there in round 2. So I just got to say, proud of us for sticking to our guns in this mock draft.
Let's go.
It's just us doubling down on the players we really love for this season. But at the 909 here, I could go any which way. I've got 3 receivers, 3 running backs. I've got an elite quarterback. I've got an elite tight end. But I am going to actually go to the running back spot here. I mentioned it earlier. Running backs dry up very quickly. And I'm good coming out of my draft with 4 running backs as long as I feel good about all 4 of those guys, whether it's a volume play in your studs like your Joe Mixon, whether it's a Trey Sermon, a guy who should be valuable with upside, or a Gus Edwards, who's just a rock-solid guy as my RB2. And I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up with Tony Pollard here. A stash who could have some value, even if Zeke is healthy, as a flex, as a throw-in guy, to your lineup if you're in a pinch. But I think Tony Pollard is the most elite, handcuff in the NFL. It's got to be Tony Pollard or A.J. Dillon. But we've seen it from Pollard before. When he's gotten the opportunity with Zeke out of the lineup, he's been a lock-it-in running back one for fantasy football. So I'm going to take Pollard here as someone who can give my roster that upside. But I don't think he's just a handcuff. I don't always like stashing in Alexander Mattison, because while he would become valuable if Dalvin Cook was to go down, he doesn't really give you a lot unless that situation happens. Or with Tony Pollard, you kind of get to double dip. You get the elite upside if the starter goes down, but you also do get some standalone value as well, which, again, I can't harp it enough in these 12 and these 14-team leagues. Running back depth, running back value is always so important. So Pollard is going to be my first pick there. And I'm just assuming I can come back around with some depth wide receivers. I only have 3 right now. I like them all a lot, but I might need some floor plays here as we get into the 10th, 11th round. And there are plenty of those to go around late in these drafts. But after Pollard, we saw Darnell Mooney, Devontae Parker, James Conner, Noah Fant, Nyheim Hines, and Logan Thomas come off the board. So I am looking wide receiver here. The top guys on my board here are Marquise Brown. I see Elijah Moore there, Russell Gage. Henry Ruggs is interesting as an upside shot. But there's a lot of upside shots I like later. Terrace Marshall, Paris Campbell, Brian Edwards. I might circle back to some of those guys. I'm going to lock in Russell Gage. I need a floor play at receiver. I shot big, shot for the moon with McLaurin, Amari Cooper, and Leviska Chenault. So I do need someone who should get a decent target share, who should be, he's in a situation with a lot of vacated targets in Atlanta. It's going to be a high-volume passing team. We've seen Russell Gage come through before when given opportunity. And I think Russell Gage, if he's getting 6, 7, 8 targets a game, can give you really solid flex weeks if you need to plug him in. So I'm going to take Gage and see what he can do with that additional opportunity in Atlanta. And then circling back at the end of the draft, I'll shoot higher, I'll shoot bigger on some of these upside plays that are more boom bust, all or nothing. So Gage is the pick here to really solidify my wide receiver core as we get into this really, this sleeper range of these drafts.
And it's funny because Russell Gage, for the last 2 years that we've been doing this, was always, especially down this
deep shot of the week.
Deep shot of the week. So guys, follow along in season when you got to make these crazy start-sit decisions, when you got to come up with a flex on Sunday morning because you just found out that one of your guys
Olamide Zaccheaus.
Yeah, man. Plugging in Olamide Zaccheaus for 17 points was a masterpiece. That was my thesis as far as fantasy football. I should do a whole capstone project on that. But after you went Russell Gage, I got absolutely sniped here because I was eyeing Marquez Callaway. He's one of the double-digit round sleeper wide receivers. One of the
perfect upside,
the marquee names. Marquez is a marquee name that you need to be looking at in the double-digit rounds when you get to this range where the receivers are getting nasty. When it's like Devontae Parker, Hollywood Brown, Mecole Hardman, go Marquez Callaway because as of right now, he looks like he's going to be the outside alpha X in New Orleans with Jameis Winston passing the ball. We know what Jameis Winston can do as a quarterback. I don't care that if he throws 30 interceptions again, who cares? Marquez Callaway is going to be a great play, if nothing else, just to start the year.
Yes.
And he's been showing out in preseason. So I love that pick there for Team 5. Would have been the pick there for me. Oh, and unfortunately, both Goddard and Tunyon were taken. And those were both of my picks here. Wow, I got triple sniped, man. That hurts.
Tough scene.
That hurts. That Jalen
Higbee
hurts,
on the board.
Pun intended on that.
I think Higbee could be in that tier. I know you like Jonnu as well.
That's right. Yeah, I actually am going to go Higbee. Just go ahead and lock up a guy with some upside. I mean, same thing I said with the Cooper Kupp pick earlier on. Matt Stafford airing the ball out, throwing it deep, and now Gerald Everett's gone. I know some people like the tight end, the youngster that was brought into L.A. I think his name's Jacob Harris. Could play that Gerald Everett role, but I'm going to bank on young tight ends taking time to get ramped up and Higbee being used more as a pass catcher. I don't expect Deshaun Jackson to stay healthy. Tutu Atwell is a fine role player, but I don't expect him to be anything more than a deep threat, meaning Higbee has, I think, a non-zero chance to be the number 3 on this team in a best-case scenario.
And, Steph, I want to say something real quick. I know earlier you were thinking about Pitts, but you said Ridley and Pitts, you don't want both on the same roster, but now you take Higbee and Kupp on the same roster. So people are probably asking, why is it okay to do now but not earlier? And I'm sure you'll agree with me on this, but there's a big difference between taking two guys from the same passing offense in round 2 and round 4 or round 5 or whenever it was than there is, in round 4 and round 10. Because if you take two guys from the same offense in round 2 and round 5, you are betting a lot on that passing offense to be truly elite. And while we think the Falcons are going to have a lot of volume this season, there's a lot of question marks there as well, where in LA, you take Cooper Kupp and Tyler Higbee in round 4 and then round 10. So for those guys to return on that value, it doesn't necessarily require the LA passing offense to be much higher than expectation. Honestly, if it is just expectation, I think those are two great values on those players. So you and I have both talked about it before. We get this question a lot. Are you willing to take two players from the same passing offense? A running back and receiver on the same team, or two receivers or a receiver tight end? And it all depends on the situation. It all depends on where you are in your draft. I'm probably not going to take CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper in rounds 2 and 3, but in certain situations, I'm definitely willing to double dip if it's a good offense and the values are there. So I just wanted to call that out for you in that Rams pick of Tyler Higbee, because I think starting him and Kupp every single week could actually be fantastic for you and your roster, create a little bit of negative correlation there and say, hey, Stafford's going to get his on a week in, week out basis, and I have a better chance of capturing some of that, maybe all of it, with Kupp and Tyler Higbee.
Great call out. And unfortunately, I missed the Matt Stafford pick. I did get sniped on him. That would be that'd be the ultimate, optimal play here, is if I had Kupp, Higbee, and Matt Stafford and just put down a triple parlay on the Rams being electric through the air. But I don't get that. And right now it's an interesting spot because it's just upside time at wide receiver. I like Elijah Moore, but a lot of questions, new offense. He still has Jamison Crowder to compete with in the slot. People are excited about Corey Davis. I'm not willing to go in Elijah Moore yet because I think all the names below him are just as likely to hit, even though I like Elijah Moore a lot in Dynasty. And so with that being the case, a guy that I have, somehow it's happened this way, he's on every one of my rosters. It's Trevor Lawrence. That's the pick. And I know you were probably eyeing that, Leviska T-Law stack, but Trevor Lawrence is a guy, not only he is mobile. To me, he is Justin Herbert potentially from last year as far as the fantasy production he's going to put up. I do have concerns over his weapons, but I don't have to start him here with Jalen Hurts to start the season. And if I have to in a pinch, I can start Trevor Lawrence against the Texans in week 1. It's just a streamer. And then beyond that, it's just all upside on a guy who's been a perennially praised prospect since he's came into Clemson. Even in high school, he was a stud. So I'm just going to bank on the pedigree with this pick. And Alex, it's just upside range. So we'll just go ahead and take these gambles here. No amount of analysis is going to tell us where to go.
Exactly. And we see more, depth running backs, handcuff running backs come off the board. Kenyon Drake, Tariq Cohen, Phillip Lindsay, J.D. McKissick. None of those guys excite me at all. I mean, so honestly, Sony Michel at the 1103.
Steal.
I kind of forgot about Michel on my board. I think that's an absolute steal. If I would have thought about him at the 909, I would have definitely considered him over Tony Pollard. I think he is going to have a role in LA. Talked about that a little bit when I hit on Henderson earlier. So steal there for Sony. But yeah, you mentioned it. It's upside range, and I'm going to kind of follow in your footsteps here. And if you can get this guy in the 11th round in your draft, it's going to be a steal, especially based on some of the narratives and the hype that's building. I'm going Trey Lance. I'm in. I was on the fence for the longest time. I'm all in on Trey Lance. And if he was gone, I'd be willing to go Fields here. But I'm in on Lance because he gives you something on the ground that Justin Fields does not. Fields can run it, but Lance is like a faster Josh Allen.
He's a Lamar
on
Jackson,
the ground.
Dude.
He can truck guys. He's literally a blend on the ground between Lamar and Josh Allen. He can truck guys. He's fast. He's probably not as elusive as Lamar, but this dude loves to run the football, and he has the frame to take more hits, on the field. So Trey Lance is going to be the pick here. And I know I have Dak Prescott on this roster, but here's the beauty of taking Trey Lance late. I have no pressure to start him. I don't care when he gets the starting job. Obviously, sooner would be better than later. But if he doesn't start till week 4, if he doesn't start till week 6, I'm okay with stashing him on the bench, because the second he comes into that starting lineup, which will happen this season, I truly do believe, I expect him, even if he's shaky from an NFL prospect perspective, he should be great for fantasy because of that rushing upside. And if he does even what Jalen Hurts did last year, 20, 25 points a game for his starts, all it's going to take is one start, maybe 2, and I'm going to have options at the quarterback spot. I have two options, really. A, I could trade Dak Prescott, which with an Amari Cooper stack, I'm probably not going to do. But if I didn't have Cooper and didn't have that stack, I could trade Dak and get something phenomenal for him as an elite quarterback in my league and just start Trey Lance for the rest of the season. Or everyone loves the new hotness. Everyone loves that up-and-coming hype player. I can probably get some pretty good value for Lance once he does break out and take that job. So I'm going to take Lance here in the draft because the second he takes that starting job, if he's on your waiver wire, he's either going to be the first guy claimed if you do a priority, or he's going to require a ton of fab in your league. So go ahead and take Lance late in your drafts, lock up that upside. And if he's sitting on your waivers right now, if you've already drafted and for some reason you're still watching a mock draft video, maybe you have multiple leagues and you've drafted somewhere and still have more coming up, check those leagues and see if Trey Lance is available. And if he is, scoop him up, stash him on your bench, because give me Trey Lance over a Rashad Penny, a Latavius Murray, a James White all day long. But after Lance went Latavius Murray, Rashad Penny, James White, ironically, Alexander Mattison, Giovanni Bernard, and Henry Ruggs. And I'm back on the clock, really looking at upside wide receivers here. And I'm going to go with Bryan Edwards. I'm going to go with Bryan Edwards for the Vegas Raiders. John Brown is truly on the roster bubble. By the time you're listening to this, he might have got cut. I don't know. And if he made the team, he was running with the twos for Vegas all preseason with that Nathan Peterman group. So John Brown's not really a threat in the starting lineup. It's going to be Henry Ruggs, Bryan Edwards, Darren Waller, and Hunter Renfrow for Vegas. So I'll take the upside on Edwards. Phenomenal prospect. He was battling injuries last season. He's getting all the coach speak you could ever want from John Gruden, really hyping this guy up. So I'll take the shot that he can turn into an alpha wide receiver one for Vegas and see what happens.
Yeah, I like that pick there. And the guy who I was considering last round at wide receiver made it back to me. It is Elijah Moore. I do like the upside on him in the Zach Wilson offense. He was a stud in college. He jumped out of the gym in his pro day, and he was literally relegating targets away from A.J. Brown and DK Metcalf in college. Just absolutely ridiculous. You and I have comped him to Antonio Brown. Hot take there. So I'm going to take E. Moore. It might not be his year right away. Wide receivers do typically take some time to get onboarded. Granted, we had Jefferson and CD and Higgins putting up solid numbers last year. But I'm going to take the upside shot for these values of where we're at currently. And now I'm going to look for another tight end. I like going multiple tight ends, but I don't feel great about the one that I have. And Jonnu Smith is sitting there for me. Hunter Henry, he's back on the field, but he was battling injury. And I like Jonnu Smith just as an athletic specimen. Evan Ingram is hurt. He would probably be another interesting name here, as is Irv Smith. So at this point, Jonnu is not only the last healthy guy there, I just like him a lot. I have hot takes on Jonnu Smith that I've dropped before. I'm not going to go into them now. But let's just say next year he could be a guy that you're looking at a lot earlier on these draft boards.
I like the upside shot, and it looks like after your picks, we saw Gabriel Davis, Salvon Ahmed, Malcolm Brown, and Irv Smith go. Tua, Justin Fields, those upside shots by Team 1 and Team 2, fantastic there on that turn. I really like that a lot. Honestly, Sterling Shepard at the 1301 is interesting. If you need a depth wide receiver, if you really want a floor play, Shepard looked great with the ones in the Giants' last preseason game. I don't want to buy too much into it. You know, Daniel Jones did not look great, and Kenny Golladay wasn't playing, Kadarius Toney wasn't playing, Saquon Barkley wasn't playing. But when I look at that team, I think Kenny G and Sterling Shepard are going to be the starters, and Shepard looked good, and he was getting a lot of targets. So he might actually be sneaky yet again in 2021, a guy that we're totally forgetting about this season. But at the 1309, I'm back on the clock, and it's really who is an upside shot that I want to take late in this draft. Not going to take any of the tight ends here. I do have Travis Kelce, feeling pretty good about that. None of these tight end names really jump out to me. So you know who I'm taking here, Steph. It's going to be Paris Campbell. I've talked about him a lot. I don't have to talk about him anymore. So, you know, I'm going to take Campbell here. He's someone I'm trying to lock up everywhere I can in Indy. Now T.Y. Hilton is battling an injury, and Campbell should have an even more prominent role this season, at least to start the season, maybe for the entire season until we get more specifics on Hilton's injury and how long he'll be out. But it's going to be Campbell. Other guys I like here in this range just as flyers, I like Amon-Ra St. Brown a lot. You know, the Lions cutting Brashad Perriman after paying him guaranteed money shows me that Amon-Ra St. Brown straight up beat him out. Tyrell Williams beat him out. Quintez Cephas beat him out. These other guys are going to be better. Jamison Crowder's interesting as a floor play. I know you just took Elijah Moore But Jamison Crowder, Elijah Moore at the wide receiver spot is kind of like the wide receiver version of Melvin Gordon, Javonte Williams. Both could be valuable at the same time. One's probably going to be better at the start of the season. One's probably going to be better at the back half of the season. But if you end up thin at wide receiver and you want a depth guy, like maybe you see what Jamison Crowder can do week 1 or 2, probably someone you're going to end up cutting as the season goes along, but you could plug him in for a couple weeks. Rondale Moore's here as well if you want upside.
I even like
a ton of good names.
Emmanuel Sanders in this range as well.
Sanders looked great in their preseason game. Looks like he's going to be the number 2 in Buffalo. He and Gabe Davis looked phenomenal with Stephon Diggs out. So those guys are going to have value any given week. So still plenty of wide receiver names on the board that I really like. But I'll go ahead and lock up Campbell because he is my preference of the group, and we will finish this thing out.
Crazy that you got the Colts wide receiver 1 in the last round.
It's true. Colts wide receiver 1, Raiders wide receiver 1. It's wild. Some of these values, man. Jacksonville wide receiver 1.
Hey, man, it's values everywhere. And let's go over these rosters one more time. Would love to hear feedback from you guys in the comments down below. What different picks do you think we could have made, should have made? One that I already saw, I probably should have gone Jalen Reagor with my last pick just to try to get that potential upside in the Jalen Hurts stack. And I did get sniped a few times in this draft. The Fantasy Pros mock draft simulator was sniping me everywhere. They're going Chris Kyle on me. But for me, I got Jalen Hurts at quarterback, Trevor Lawrence in the wings, Ezekiel Elliott, DeAndre Swift, Kareem Hunt, Javonte Williams with a nice 4-piece, all guys that I like, honestly, at running back there. And I feel like I got Hunt at that ridiculous value. And then at wide receiver, feeling very nice with Ridley, Cooper, Jamar Chase, Mike Williams, and Elijah Moore. So I got a mix of depth, some upside, some role players, some guys I think could break out, and then the high floor in Kupp and Ridley. And then at tight end, just took some upside shots on Higbee and Jonnu, hoping that Mac Jones starts sooner than later in New England. But Alex, who do you got?
This might be, I don't want to exaggerate, but this might be one of the favorite rosters I've drafted. The running back, I'll get into it. The running back depth is probably the biggest weakness, but I have Dak and Trey Lance at quarterback. Absolutely phenomenal. At running back, this is the shakiest spot. Joe Mixon, RB1, fantastic. Then I got Gus Edwards, Trey Sermon, and Tony Pollard. Really hoping Gus can be that consistent RB2 for me this season while I wait and see what happens with Sermon and Pollard and see if I can get some of that upside for another strong RB. At receiver, I've got Terry McLaurin, Amari Cooper, Leviska Chenault, Russell Gage, Paris Campbell, Bryan Edwards, which I absolutely love. McLaurin, Cooper, could be 2 wide receiver 1s. I love Leviska Chenault's upside. And then I got a good mix of upside and floor plays on my bench with Gage, Campbell, and Edwards. And then I have Kelsey at tight end, which is going to give me an advantage every single week against my opponents. So a really well-rounded team. Again, that running back spot is the biggest question mark. If I could go back, what I would have done differently. Sony Michel slipped in this draft. I think probably in your home links, he's going to go a little bit earlier. But I probably would have gone ahead and taken Sony Michel where I took Russell Gage just to give you another upside shot at the running back spot. But outside of that, I really like how this roster came together with Kelsey in the first round.
Well done, man. Well done. Well, if you guys want to continue the conversation with us, talk fantasy all season long, join the Discord channel in the link down below. If you like what we do here on the show, a like, a sub, a review. If you're listening to the audio version of this, appreciate all of it. Keeps the show moving forward. Hit that Manscaped up. It is absolutely incredible. Change the game.
I mean, a lot of people ask the best way to support the channel. Like right now, we want to keep doing all of our content for free, keep the Discord free. We're not trying to charge for anything, but the biggest way you can really help us right now is keep watching, keep liking, keep commenting, and hit up that Manscaped DMS for 20% off, like you saw earlier. And that's really a way to help. That's the biggest way to help the channel right now. So we appreciate you. It's coming, Stef. The season's almost here. I can't wait. It's not going to stop when week 1 hits. It's only going to accelerate. We're going to keep it coming with the pod, with these clips, with the Discord. We're about to go full steam ahead.
And we'll see y'all next time.
Peace.